Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fit Chicks Chat. I'm Amanda Quinn, and today I have a very special guest with me. I am interviewing the lovely Jill Hewlett. Hi, Jill. How are you?
Hey, Amanda. I'm doing great, and I'm really looking forward to this interview.
Me too. As you know, we've been talking a bit, and I've been telling you how fascinated I am about what you do. So let me just explain to everyone what it is that you do. So Jill Hewlett, for anyone who doesn't know, is a brain fitness expert as well as a wellness authority. So she's going to be talking to us about how the brain, how the mind-body basically is connected, and how to get your brain a little more fit, because we're always so focused on our bodies, but we're never really paying as much attention maybe as we should to our brains. So I'm super excited to talk about this today. I find this stuff super fascinating, and so I just want to dive in because we've got a lot to cover in this short period of time. So Jill, why don't we start off though by you telling us why this is interesting to you, how you got into it, and sort of what maybe you found as you went through this process of learning about brain fit. How did that affect your body, your life overall,
Sure.
that kind of thing?
Yes. Yeah, I'd love to share because it's an interesting journey because it actually started when I was really, really young. When I was in public school, I noticed myself feeling anxious and worrying a lot and just being distracted by those things. And I carried extra weight. And in certain scenarios with other classmates and whatnot, that was pointed out to me. I wasn't necessarily bullied, but it was an obvious feature about me, and I didn't like that. It didn't feel comfortable. So at a very young age, I just made this decision. I was about 9 years old.
Yeah.
I decided that I was going to start watching what I ate, making healthier choices. I don't even know how I knew what that meant. That was probably just less cookies and less desserts, and not a second helping of things. And I did more exercise. And it's really interesting, Amanda, because I went from being a more introverted, kind of frumpy child to, by the time I was 10, 11 years old, I was one of the top athletes in my class,
That's amazing.
in my grade. Yeah, and all of a sudden I just started to feel more confident. And that was the precursor, in me understanding that how we fuel ourselves and how the activity we engage in not only affects our appearance, it also affects our engagement, our results, our athletic abilities, but also our emotional and mental state. And that was groundbreaking because it was my own research, right? As a child, I noticed this, right? And then all through high school, I kind of leveraged that. And I think a lot of people in mainstream approaches, their mentality is, I want to feel better, look better, lose weight, have more energy. I'm going to eat better and I'm going to exercise more, right?
Yeah.
And that's brilliant because fuel in and the expenditure output is really going to can be leveraged to create a new scenario, a new state of being. The thing is, what really started to emerge as I went through high school was that I found this was a lot of work. I found that I was really having to monitor and my input, my output. And by the time I got to university and lifestyle change and just being away from home and new environment and stressors, I noticed that there were other things I needed to contend with. And I realized that this idea of exercise and nutrition, to me, is the cornerstone to our health and wellness. I also realized that there were other things that I could do to enhance myself and to work to my advantage. And that became the cornerstone of my professional life, unbeknownst to me at the time, because I was doing this all for personal reasons. I was interested in how I could feel better, do better, sleep better, have more energy, focus on my studies more, get decent grades, whatever it was. And so I started to pursue and study a more holistic modalities. And by the time I got home from university, by the time I graduated, I decided to go full-fledged into this pursuit. Cool. And for personal reasons, which ultimately turned into my professional path.
Very cool. And did you find, when you went into these studies and you started focusing more on the mental side and the emotional side and how it affects the body, because they go hand in hand 100%, and there's science that backs that 100%. Did you find that you had to do less work and there was less effort on your end to be able to maintain sort of a healthier lifestyle? Or was it not necessarily the effort, but it was more about, it just became more with ease?
That's a good question, because when you address it yourself from a more holistic perspective, there is more to look at and more to hold. And yet it seems to be the paradox is, in a way, it becomes easier because you're leveraging more facets of yourself.
Right.
So I think I would say that. Interestingly enough, in this pursuit of looking at different modalities and trying them on for size, I was able to, I got the opportunity actually to host and produce a wellness TV show. And there's more details to the story, but that came up pretty early in my path. And what was cool about that is I was interviewing all these experts, these health and wellness people, facilitators, teachers, educators, and they were all, although they had different areas of expertise and different training, at the core of it, they were saying the same thing. So the wisdom on how we best take care of ourselves and optimize our physical, mental, emotional, and overall functional health are pretty universal. And at the same time, depending on the person, you can customize a program for you. And you can start where, it feels most comfortable, where you feel most ready, where you feel most excited about. And then inevitably, as someone proceeds on their life path and situations change or different aspects of their life evolve, what they need and what they do to best care for themselves changes too. And at the core of it, though, the very core of it, there's always some set principles. So it's kind of it's the big picture and little picture. And I think the idea is that there are certain things that are universal to everyone, and then we have to take into consideration the individual. And I'd say things that make you feel good, things that don't take much time, things that can fit into a busy lifestyle. As moms and entrepreneurs, we can relate. Anything like that that's going to be quick and easy and simple and effective are my favorites for sure.
Definitely. And so, I mean, being known as a brain fitness expert, so what does that title really mean? And sort of what for you, can you share some techniques then in terms of what that means and how people can sort of identify as to how to, I guess, use techniques to get their brain more fit? What would be some of the sort of simple techniques or, to create more mind-body awareness? Because I think that that's one of the things that's really lacking a lot of times is this mind-body awareness.
I agree. Well, first of all, I'll start with the premise that when I talk about as we cultivate a fit brain, we inevitably are creating a fit life. So it does flow out and impact all areas when we focus on fitness idea. And further to that, we actually, in most cases, use the body we have to get the brain we want. Because whatever we do to our physical body directly impacts our cognition, our neural activity. So, we can really leverage some really positive and healthy self-care strategies, from nutrition to exercise to stretching to breathing to various body work modalities, to choosing environments and spending more time in nature and getting more sleep and things like that to directly impact our brain. So there's no doubt about that. That's an easy gateway, because I joke around with people in my workshops, like, you don't have to become a neurosurgeon to improve your brain power. In fact, you're going to step into the role of strategically becoming a neuroplastician. And meaning that you're working with neuroplasticity, you're working with neurogenesis, you're working with the malleability and sculptability of your system, and primarily in this case your brain, to get the results you want. And everyone is doing it consciously or subconsciously, to their advantage or not, whether they're strategically sculpting their life and their brain, or they're just going about with regular habits that they're falling into. They are impacting themselves. So I like to point that out to people. You're going to now take on that role as a neuroplastician, and you're going to strategically sculpt yourself so you can get results that you actually want.
So I guess then the difference that what you're stating is that the difference is that in everyday life, we are doing things already that are sculpting our brain and making it more fit. But, you know, with these techniques, we can do it more consciously.
Yes, and I take it a step further. We're always doing something that's having an impact. Whether that's a positive or negative impact is how choiceful you're being. So some people are just doing healthy habits, maybe unbeknownst to them, but there's a lot of people who are doing limiting and unhealthy habits that are interfering with their results and abilities, and they don't realize it.
Right.
So a big part of this is education and awareness, for sure. And then after we teach the general concept, how it works, why it works, and then we look at the science behind it, a very user-friendly, relatable science, then we say, okay, these are the components we can break it down to. And in many cases, it's using the body we have to get the brain we want. However, there's also using the mind to change the body. And I know you know this in fitness. If a person has the right mindset and they're motivated and they really get into that kind of their brain is in the game, they're going to get better results for sure, right? And the reality is that we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And research has shown that most of those, and there's a lot of thoughts, right? It's a big number. A lot of them are reruns from the day before. So we're repeating thoughts on a regular basis. And so our habits really are creating our reality. And if they're good habits, awesome. But if they aren't good habits, then this is really interfering with a person's performance and ability to achieve what they want, right? And to feel at their best. And so I also, and I like to let people know that it's human nature to actually spend a lot of time thinking about concerns or worries, because it's the survival part of our brain that is looking out for us. It's wanting to keep us safe. So we're always on the lookout for danger. Or something that isn't feeling right or looking right or right. We're looking for discrepancies. We're looking for potential problems, because research has also shown that people would rather worry about something that never happens than actually not worry and be taken by surprise. So we prematurely or proactively worry about things. We repeat all these thoughts from the day before, and you couple those two things together, and people stay in a very limited space. And so if you start to go, okay, well, now that I know this, I need to use awareness and choice. So I need to actually proactively choose a new way of thinking, a more positive way, a more healthy way, a more open and expansive way of thinking, rather than something that is going to cause me more stress and restriction. And that takes many shapes and forms. I mean, that can be just, in students, young people actually can be really good at this when they're taught how to do it. The younger we learn these things, the better. However, they, of course, can be taught and learned at any age. But we do become ingrained according to, our habits and lifestyles. And when we start to become aware of them, we can start to change them, and it's going to take practice.
Right. No, it definitely, I mean, anything takes practice. Anything is, it's, especially when you're trying to form a new habit, it does take time. So, and don't they say, like, to form a new habit, it's generally about 21 to 28 days that you have to consistently do something in order to create that habit. So. Yeah,
that is a typical saying. And I have heard research that says that's kind of an accepted number, like 3 weeks, 21 days. But a person can change a habit on a dime. And for some people, it can take longer to change a habit. And an example would be, say someone goes to their doctor and they become diagnosed with a sickness. And then they're a smoker. And the doctor says, you've got cancer. And the smoking is not helping this. This is maybe the cause of it, possibly. The person may, in that moment, stop smoking.
Right.
So it
No,
depends on various
sure.
factors, right? Like how
Yeah.
motivated we are, how ready we are, like it's the straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing, or is it, something that has many layers to it. And with the brain fitness, and I'm going to share in our interview some actual techniques,
Hmm.
we can use these for just general overall mental clarity, improving energy levels, feeling more relaxed and calm, communicating more effectively, whatever those general things are that we do in day-to-day life.
Hmm.
And they can be used strategically to help to support a person to move toward a very specific goal they may have. So it's really cool because when we talk about changing bigger issues in our life, like
Hmm.
overcoming bigger obstacles or things that we've been struggling with for a long time, we
Right.
can actually use brain fitness strategies to deal with those in a very tangible way.
Cool. Well, let's do that. Let's dive into some techniques because I'm excited to learn these. So why don't you share with us some different techniques that that you feel are like really, they're simple to apply, and there's something that will actually make a really great impact, whether it be from reducing stress or whether it be for overall like health, like in terms of like physical, like if it's going to actually help you be more focused or more dedicated or more motivated or whatever. I mean, you're the expert, so I'm going to leave that up to you in terms of which techniques you'd like to share with us now.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to. I'd love to. So when a person gets the idea that their body affects their mind and they are a neuroplastician for better or for worse, whether they're
Yep.
doing it strategically or not, and that their habits are creating a reality, once they really can own that, then they can start to say, okay, well, what could I do every day to feel better, to improve my energy levels, like you said, to focus more effectively, to make better decisions, to all sorts of things. I mean, the list is endless, really. So what would I do? I'd start with saying, let's start a new routine first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
People who watch your interviews and podcasts are probably likely to be interested in health and wellness, maybe have a gym membership. And so most people get the idea that, oh, if I get out and exercise regularly, that would be helpful. And so they
Mm-hmm.
may do their best to go to the gym 2, 3, 4 times
Right.
a week. But it's not always easy, and life happens, and we just may not get to the gym for a while. But does that mean we stop using movement to activate ourselves? We can still use movement in very compact, quick, and easy ways throughout our day that does
Mm-hmm.
not even require us leaving the space we're in, does not require a gym membership, any kind of equipment. We don't need to change our clothes. We can actually do some simple movement strategies to immediately not only get some physical benefit, but more so actually get a mental gain. So an
Cool.
example would be it's when people wake up in the morning, just because their alarm went off, just because their eyes are open, doesn't mean that they're ready to engage in their day.
Oh
So an
gosh, I
activity
know.
it's true, right? Like you're
Of
waking up and we're
course.
groggy and we're like kind of forced to go into our day. We have responsibilities. We have children to care for. We have
Mm-hmm.
our jobs to tasks to attend to. And yet we may not actually be what I call turned on and ready to deliver on those
Yeah.
in those areas. So the first thing I do is drink water. I always carry my water bottle. Hydration is key, and as a fitness guru, you would know this too. Your people have to stay hydrated. So
Oh my
first thing,
gosh, yeah.
get the system going, get some cleansing happening, create that environment where activity and connection and communication can happen. And that's
Okay.
hydration, because we're 70 to 80% water, so we need to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
once a person is hydrated, then we could do a very quick all over body massage using just a small area, because the ear has over 400 acupressure points. And when we
What? I didn't know
stimulate
that.
both sides, yeah, it's a big
Cool.
number, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when we stimulate each side of the brain or each side of the body, we actually activate both sides of the brain, because the right side of the brain is connected to the left side of the body. The left side of the brain is connected to the right side. So by stimulating both sides of the body simultaneously, what you're doing is you're stimulating both main hemispheres, the
Mm-hmm.
left, the logic side, the right, the creative side. And we're creating something called whole brain activation, or hemispheric synchronization. And it's very powerful because most people, especially when they're groggy and definitely when they're stressed, they move into sidedness. Their dominant side takes over and runs the show. So
Right.
when we do something that, yeah, can actually send communication and stimulation through the entire system, then we're actually engaging all parts of ourselves. So this is all over body massage, where you start at the top of each ear and you just roll bit by bit, just going around the rim to the lobe, wearing any earrings, going around them, starting at the top again, and it feels great. And all of a sudden, people report when they do this, their neck relaxes too, and their
Mm.
shoulders drop down. And all of a sudden, their head turning is easier, or they may start to yawn because now they're going to bring in more oxygen too. They're going to breathe more deeply. And they feel that it's kind of like that refresher where, you know, when you haven't had, your computer hasn't moved for a while, the screensaver comes on, and then you click the
Yeah.
key and then the refresh happens. It's like a quick brain refresh. And people even report saying, oh, I feel a little more energized, I can see more clearly. Because all these pressure points are the very activation points that an acupuncturist would use if they
Yeah.
were using needles or pressure to activate, use a spot on the body to activate a meridian line or an organ. So we can do this ourselves a bit, right? And get some similar benefits.
Now,
So
how
that's
long would somebody do that for? And would you also suggest it not only for morning, but also, like that 3 p.m. slump that everyone feels like they get into, like this state where they're just so tired? Would you say that that's perfect for that scenario as well, just to kind of like re-energize and, get
yeah,
yourself back awake? Yeah.
yeah,
And
totally brilliant.
how long would you
Yes.
suggest doing it for for the
So at
massaging?
any given time, the recommendation is 30 seconds to a minute. So you
Okay.
can see it doesn't take long.
Yeah,
And
of
if you
course.
have longer, you feel like doing it longer, then go for it, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying in this example, first thing in the morning, but you hit it right on. It's anytime you need that, like you said, that second wind,
Yeah.
or you're just out of focus, or you just need to, like, a little boost, brain boost.
Yeah.
Anytime, middle of the morning, after lunch, middle of the day, end of the day, before bed even. I mean, all these activities are interchangeable and can be used whenever a person needs them.
Yeah.
And
Going
if
into
you've
a
been sitting
meeting.
too long in front of your computer, right, yeah. And if a
Yeah.
person's been sitting too long in front of their computer, they may not realize it, but they definitely need it, because technology and computer screens are two-dimensional, and our brain, let me show you my expandable ball, is
Yeah.
meant to be operating in a three-dimensional fashion. And so whenever we're sitting still too long, or we're stressed about something, or we're dehydrated, we move into survival mode. And we're now performing our tasks in life, at the workplace, in the classroom, wherever it is, we're performing our tasks from a very limited ability. And so all of a sudden we become aware of that, we drink some water, we do a brain fitness activity, there you go, right? So that
Awesome.
particular activity is taken from my training in brain gym, which was something I got into after university when I realized that I wanted to pursue a holistic wellness path for myself and also professionally. And so Dr. Dennison and his wife Gail are the founder of an amazing body of work that I've been licensed in for 2 decades. So some of the activities I share are from their program. Another one that a person could do is, so they get up from bed, they're getting ready to start their day, but they really want to be functioning on all cylinders, and they're not quite ready yet. They drink the water, they rub their ears. Another thing they can do is go for a quick run and walk on the spot. So you start by just getting the energy flowing by taking the opposite hand to the opposite leg, and then just to get the circulation flowing, go quickly for a few, even maybe run on the spot, and then slow it right down while you're still breathing, but slow it right down so you're actually engaged in balance. And that is an incredibly powerful activation activity, because you can't be in stress and balance at the same time. So if you shift your body physiologically into a balanced position and state, the brain has to go there too. Amazing.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And
Very
it's
cool.
simple,
And so simple. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that I love about it too, is that it's something you don't need a ton of space. You don't need equipment. You don't need anything. You just need your body, and you just need to move. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And each activity has a variety of ways of doing it. Like this, there's a great way. I was just teaching a group of Montessori educators. There's professional development day before school starting next week, and we talked about doing this cross crawl to get the kids, because they need something if they're getting ants in the pants, or of focus, or you're not emotionally balanced, maybe even, then have them stand up and do some cross crawls, slow it right down, and then they're going to start to shift for sure. But then to get people working together, because teamwork's important, classmates getting along well together, same as in the boardroom or in the workplace, you can have them do it cross lateral with a partner, which is very much like those games we played as kids, like CC My Playmate kind of thing.
Yeah.
I had adults do it in conferences, in a workplace settings, and now they're bringing their knee up, so they're touching the knee and the hand cross laterally, and they love it. And you get a little bit of exercise and you get a lot of brain stimulation from it.
Very cool. Awesome. And do you have any other, like, do you have one more that you would recommend that's something, maybe for like a stress reduction? Do you have something like less about like, waking up, but something that like really simple thing that someone can do to reduce stress? Because I know stress is such a huge, such a huge factor in a lot of people's lives. It also causes a lot from a physical standpoint. If you are someone who is working towards like your fitness goals, your health goals, stress can completely just roadblock you. So is there anything that you would recommend for that?
Great question. It's a perfect one to end with, actually. Because we are, like, throughout our day, we need I call them mini brain recesses or brain spas, the ones that are calming. We sometimes just need a little quick getaway, and we don't have time for a siesta. We can't go for a nap. We can't go home if we're at work. So what do we do to just kind of get recentered, calm our energy down, just do some self-care, right, when we need it? So I recommend this can be done seated or standing. I'm standing at the moment, but you could, if you're sitting, bring both feet to the floor. When you're standing, you've got both feet shoulder width apart, and you bring your hands together. So it's just your fingertips that are touching. Okay. And so you're holding them like this. And do it with me. And you can hold it wherever you like in front of your chest, in front of your belly, on your lap, wherever it's comfortable.
I'm going to hold it up high.
I tend to like to hold it. Yeah, for sure. So, and I tend to like to hold it right here anyway. So this feels really natural for me. But I always suggest to people, modify so they feel good for you. Because the idea of reducing stress isn't to get into another stressful position. So this seems to be like, what could really happen? But it's amazing because we have all these energy meridian lines that run through our hands. And so first of all, we're making a connection there. But we're also creating left-right brain connection, once again, bringing things back into balance and connection neurologically, but activating it through our body. So this represents that expandable ball, that whole brain potential, right?
Right.
And then it's just a light touch, but you are aware of the fingertips connecting there. And then the tongue, as a person breathes in, they breathe in through their nose, and the tongue goes up behind to the roof of the mouth, behind the front teeth, to the top of the roof there. Okay. And they exhale, and the tongue comes down. So inhaling. And they exhale out the mouth. Okay. And so the tongue comes up as we inhale through the nasal passage, and then out through the mouth, and the tongue comes down. So it's a little bit, first you have to think about it, but then it becomes very calming, and it feels very natural. And what people tell me is they start to do it without even thinking. They get into a stressful position, and automatically they just need to regroup or refocus themselves or clear their mind. They bring their fingertips together. Yeah. And their breathing, they start to slow down their breathing. And then before you know it, everything just morphs into a more peaceful and positive place. And if a person wants to, if they're feeling a little fidgety, to start with, they can actually just tap the fingers. And there's some kids who would prefer that first. And after they do that, then they just hold the fingers. And then to end it, I typically recommend people bring their hands fully together along the midline, and then clasp the hands just to anchor it, and then bring the hands to their lap. And at this point, they may get a chance to sit for a few more moments and relax, or they may have to get up and carry on with their day or activity.
Interesting. I mean, this to me seems really natural. That specific exercise seems really natural to me because I have a very strong background in meditation practices, and that seems almost similar, because it's the idea of actually focusing on breath. And I find it fascinating to me because there's, breathing is just like this natural function that we just do as human beings. But for some reason, when we get into stressful states, for some reason our breathing changes. And so when we focus on it again and we actually put an actual mental focus around our breath, it is such a calming practice to do. And so I don't know, I found that, I definitely found that was that specific practice reminded me a lot of my meditation practice, the way that I sit with my hands, breathing. I don't do anything with my tongue when I'm meditating, but the same sort of practice of just focusing on the breath. And it's such a calming factor, right?
Yes, it really is, because when we go into stress response, our cortisol levels increase, our heart rate increases. We start to draw out the glucose, the sugar from our bloodstream into the midriff to supply ourselves for that flight or fight response. Or, we tighten, our body tightens, and our breath shortens. And so if we can reverse that, we can be aware and start to, okay, I'm going to unclench my hands. I'm going to drop my shoulders. I'm going to relax my jaw. I'm going to breathe deeply. We actually start to choicefully reverse that response. And then you throw in, some hydration, some ear rubs, some cross-lateral movement. And there are I wouldn't want anyone to think that was the scope of it, because there's a lot more to this.
Of course.
Kind of brief synopsis. But the gist of it is that you can do these little activities and yield some really amazing results. And those people who are already engaging in fitness or meditation practices can probably quickly relate to this. Now what I'm doing is giving people strategies that they can do, not instead of their workouts, not instead of meditation or yoga, in between those times when they're in the middle of a busy day.
Definitely. It's like add-on value for sure. Now, in terms of, would there be anything that you have seen in the past or that you know of that kind of can really interfere with someone's progress if they're actually trying to get really focused on, like, getting a fitter brain? Like if that's like their main focus, but like, is there something that you know of that is just like a major roadblock?
Yeah, it's interesting you say this. I'd say stress is our biggest impeding factor, right? Because we all carry some level of stress, and in today's society, it's a lot of chronic stress. So that's one quick answer. Another one, though, that I think will really make or break someone's success, and will keep them in the space to continue to proactively move towards a more fit brain, more fit life, is their nutrition. And I want to address this from a more unique angle, because a very popular topic on the TV show I hosted and produced for 10 years was nutrition. Because, food's relevant to all of us. And there's so many different foods out there. There's now more and more health food stores, more healthy choices available, which is great. And there's lots of superfoods and diets and fads, and people get overwhelmed. So what I ended up starting to study and learn about almost 2 decades ago now was essential nutrition. And essential meaning our cells require it, our DNA requires it.
Right.
And all of our functioning, our health is reliant on having this nutrition, and our body doesn't produce it on its own, so we need to get it from the outside in. So to sum it up quickly, I had a pathologist, naturopath doctor on the program who was part of a huge grant in the US, $25 million grant. And this was years ago. So now it would be worth a lot more.
Yeah.
A study like this might not even be done now because of how much it would cost.
Right.
But basically, he studied degeneration and chronic disease in animals. And then that study parlayed into humans. And so basically anything with a vertebrae that has a sensory system, takes in information from the environment through the spinal cord, and then sends that message to our brain and then into output, requires a certain nutrition to perform these activities and to be healthy. And every cell of whether these animals or us as humans requires 90 essential nutrients every day. And that's 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, and 2 essential fatty acids. And on my own journey, when I started to strategically get these nutrients into my system, it was absolute game changer.
Cool.
Because what happens is your cell can do its work, and we have 50 trillion cells, so we need to feed them, and they can do a lot for us if we give them the proper conditions and resources. So by creating the right environment, getting physical activity, doing different things that will sculpt our health and our brain, and then ensuring we get this nutrition, unbelievable stuff happens. Like repair happens. Sorry. That was fine. We prevent degeneration, we ward off disease, and we function optimally. So these nutrients are key. It's proven. It's not. This work is in the Smithsonian Library. It's considered a national treasure. He's receiving awards now through the United Nations Lifetime Achievement Awards. He's nominated for a Nobel Prize. So this information is there. It's just not in the mainstream knowledge yet, because many people are still governed to believe that they need to go to get medication or surgery if they've got a problem. And they don't realize that they can actually heal by getting the right raw materials back to the cells of the body. And so what happens then, one extra piece to this is, if we're not giving ourselves the actual essential nutrients we need, then we're predisposed to cravings and overeating. Because when our cells aren't getting it, they're starving. So we overeat in search of these nutrients. We eat extra food in the hope. So if we just choose and with willpower force ourselves not to eat, we're still not dealing with the problem. We may lose weight because we're eating less calories, but we're degenerating because we're not getting enough nutrition. And then there's some people who don't have the willpower to overcome the cravings, so they just are eating excessive calories, not getting enough nutrition, and they're unhappy because they've got extra weight, and they're feeling tired and lethargic, and they can't seem to overcome it. And to me, that's really, really sad. And I struggled with this too, because in full circle from the beginning of our interview, I talked about as a child, I just started making healthier food choices, but I also restricted my calories. And that had impact throughout my teens on my growth and development to a degree. It did have an impact. There's no doubt about it. And what I learned going into my 20s is that it was about not starving myself or not like restricting myself. That'd be better. But getting more healthy whole foods. And then, Amanda, when I found out about the essential nutrition through this guest on my show, who became my most popular reoccurring guest, when I found out about that, like I said, everything changed. And so everyone in my family, clients, friends, I let them, I educate them in my programs. I teach this so that people can actually strategically give themselves what they need. And then, like you said, well, what's a sabotage? The sabotage of feeling hungry or being distracted by food, or not the cells just not having the materials to work with, is no longer a problem. I mean, that solution's been solved. And I quite honestly, 9 times out of 10, when people get this, everything else starts to fall into place. And then you can do the other pieces like strategic movement and mindfulness and creating new thought pathways and things. All that just becomes easier.
Yeah, well, because your body is functioning at its optimal state. And it's interesting, like Laura and I literally just did a podcast recently. So if for anyone listening, if you haven't listened to it, make sure that you check it out. But Laura and I just did one. It was called the September Slim Down. And it was more just though about exactly what you were just talking about, which is, getting in enough veggies, eating a lot of fiber, and then also essential nutrients and how to reduce cravings, because that's really what it boils down to. So fascinating stuff. Make sure you check out the other podcast too if you didn't already. And so one last thing then, what would be your final piece of advice? If we're going to wrap this up, what would be your final piece of advice for anyone that's listening today to say, this is how you would get more comfortable or more awareness around like mind-body connection? Like, what would be that final piece of advice that you would want someone to, if they can only follow one thing, what would that be? It's a loaded question.
That's a great question. To sum it to one piece,
I know it's tough.
I would say, I think I would say is that the knowledge that your body impacts your mind and your mind impacts your body. And moreover, you are a neuroplastician. Like,
Yeah.
you are working with the plasticity of your brain in every single moment. And that is profound and can be highly empowering. Because a person realizes that they're not set in stone. They don't have to be a product of their family tree. There's something called epigenetics, which supersedes the genetic expression, which actually determines their genetic expression, which is basically their habits and lifestyle choices. When people realize this, and they say that knowledge is power, become educated on this. I could say go out and rub your ears, go for more walks, drink more water, get your essential nutrients. All those are like key to the process. But become educated on how powerful you are, and that neuroplasticity is what we are, really. And because of that, each and every one of us are neuroplasticians, and we can leverage that, or it can inhibit us. Because just like the plasticity of the brain can set new healthy pathways, it can also set pathways that are incoherent and limiting and not functioning optimally. And so a person can, once again, use that in their favor or not. And if they become educated on this simple user-friendly neuroscience, and like in the programs I teach, they walk away feeling pretty prepared to step into this role strategically.
Awesome. That's perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jill. I mean, I love chatting with you. I hope we can do this again. And before we go, though, can you please let anyone who's listening know how they can reach you, find out more information about what you have going on? Because brain fitness is something that I think everyone should really be paying attention to, because like you said, it's another essential part of your overall health. So how can they find out more about you?
Yes. Well said, for sure. So I'd love for people to go to my website, because there are a lot of resources there, and videos in my blog, and the types of services and programs I offer, including information on our women's wellness circles too, which they're growing in numbers across Ontario right now. So if they go to Jill Hewlett, my name.com, they're going to find my website, which is great. And then there is an opportunity on that website to sign up for my newsletter. It's a free newsletter. It goes out once or twice a month with an informative blog, user-friendly neuroscience put into practical life applications, and to inspire people and give them useful tools. And I am actually beginning a regular video series, so they can be part of that that's coming forth this September, which is great. And I also have what just came out. I have my book launch. I have my first book, Common Sense Uncommonly Practiced, that was out 5 years ago, and my latest one, Uncommon Sense Put into Practice. And they're complementary books. One doesn't have to be read before the other, but they're meant to support people in positive lifestyle changes in a really gentle and inspiring way. So if any of these resources appeal to someone, or overall they just like to contact me with a question or a comment, I love to hear from them.
Awesome. Well, that's perfect. Well, thank you again, Jill. I love chatting with you. I find this stuff super fascinating, and I can't wait to learn more myself. And I can't wait for your video series to come out. That's great. It's exciting news.
Likewise. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you soon.